Hey everyone, it's your host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have an incredible woman, a dynamic woman. And today she's here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. She is my hero. And we are going to spend some time with her today, picking her brain and getting some insight and hopefully get her to spill some tea on the life she's had. Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson. She is the creator of the KPG system and is known across the globe as a go-to expert for six-figure professionals who want to escape the corporate rat race while legally keeping more of what they earn. As a former IRS agent, she has turned wealth strategies and complex systems, and she shows entrepreneurs and high-earning employees how to build lasting wealth without falling into common tax traps that the IRS, the government, Uncle Sam, call it what you want, is afraid for us to know. And she is giving us her time, her energy, and sharing some tips today to help us do better in our lives, in our business, and foreseeable future. So I can't hold this incredible woman back today. Please help me welcome to the stage, Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson on the show.
Marcus, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to you, Doctor. Your media kit is extensive. Your resume is extensive, and I couldn't have thanked you more. Shout out to your team and for all the great work that you're doing. Because what you're doing is not easy. To talk about taxes, that's a very sensitive topic. That's a very touchy topic. We're talking about money, people's money, your money, our money, and the government's, Uncle Sam's money in this pool of things. So, um, I wanted to first start with what made you decide to make the transition to become an IRS agent. That's not the thing that I grew up wanting to do. Like most kids, you ask them today, what do you want to be when you grow up? A doctor, an astronaut, not a tax professional with the government. Why did you want to become an IRS agent? Tell us that story.
Well, I knew when I was 15 that I was going to into accounting. My father brought home a Black Enterprise magazine, and he opened it up to the middle, and it had like the 100 best professions for Black people. And I went through there, and I saw engineer, and I said no because my uncle's an engineering major, and I didn't like his Greek, the books that he had, and I don't want to be a doctor because I don't like to see blood. So yes, I'm pretty good in math. I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So I selected accounting. I went and got my accounting degree, and I worked first of all in CPA firms because they said if you want to be a CPA, this is what my dad said. If you're a CPA, you can work in corporate, you can work for public accounting, you can teach, you can even start your own business or work for nonprofits. So I had a lot of options. So I started out working with accounting firms. And when you work for an accounting firm, at least back then, if you worked there 2 years after you passed the CPA exam, then you could be a CPA.
Mm.
I did do that. And then I left that because it was kind of a lot of travel involved. And it would be different if I was going to places like New York and LA, but they had me in Podunk, Mississippi, and all kind of backwards places like that. So I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I went into corporate America. In corporate America, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know and what you do with who you know. And I didn't like that. And my father always taught me to not complain. If you don't like where you are at point A, go to point B. So I stayed in corporate America a very short period of time, looked in the newspaper and saw an ad that said IRS agent. And I said, let's see what this entails. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And I didn't have to have an assembly line. In corporate America, I had to wait on other people to do their financial stuff and then pass it to me. Well, if they were messing around and waiting till Friday, then I was there all night on Friday. So it looks like if I'm a revenue agent, then I can do my own cases. And so that's why I selected the Internal Revenue Service.
Absolutely. Can you give us some insight into your background, your upbringing, um, mom and dad? What influences have your mom and dad encouraged you or not experiencing put into your life in front of you? I think I look at you and I think Michelle Obama, and I think of a woman who was encouraged, was supported, was encouraged her to believe that she could do more and anything she set her mind to. What what about your upbringing that caused you to become the woman you are today?
Well, first of all, I'm originally from Detroit,
Okay.
the east side of
East
Detroit.
side. Okay.
East side. Okay, so that and my parents, although they divorced when I was 14, my mother is very creative. She writes books and she's very imaginative, and I got that my book writing skills and my imagination from her. And then my father is the pragmatic side, the math and all that, and I got that from him. They divorced when I was 14, and I know it's unusual, but my father got custody. So I had a
Hmm.
brother that passed away when I was 18, but he got custody of us at 14. And he encouraged me. It was like I was daddy's girl, but he was very, very um not he wasn't strict. He was just very careful about the way he raised me. He let me make decisions. He would say, okay, if you do this, this is what's going to happen, but if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And I didn't feel like reinventing the wheel. I've asked my parents recently, both of them separately, was I as compliant as I remember? They said you did everything we told you to do. So I was that child. So he encouraged me to get good grades, and I did. And that's where it all started. That work ethic. He worked very hard. We had to work every Labor Day, and he's an entrepreneur also. So he started out with a business called Thrifty Home Improvement, and he would do basements in the 70s. And you have an unfinished basement, and all of a sudden you have a great finished basement. He only had to do a couple of them, and it was by word of mouth. So every summer I'm running around with a wheelbarrow, knocking out walls and stuff like that. So I just learned to be tough and learned to do what needed to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I told y'all, bring in the sauce. A true powerhouse speaker. And what is it how has that helped you? When I think of accounting, when I think of IRS, when I think of money, um I imagine that's a fairly dominated male industry. And looking at you and the person next to you, I can imagine that you must have had some time, maybe not a difficult time. You can speak to that, but what was it like in a male dominated industry where here I think of you and I think of the Taraji Pete movie, Hidden Figures, right? You're a woman, an intelligent woman, a black woman, um, pushing her way to the top and achieving things that in a male dominated industry. What did you experience as a black woman in a male dominated industry? What was that like?
It was bittersweet. Sometimes I, got the accolades, and sometimes I got people that wanted to touch me inappropriately. So it was
Mm,
interesting, but I didn't have any problems. It's like I was very laser focused on what I needed to do. Now I did need some pointers as far as socializing. I wasn't that person. I don't do a lot of socializing. I ran track, so I've not been on a team sport, and I needed some encouragement. One of the guys from one of the big eight accounting firms that my firm had to work with, I would go to work and I would do my work, and then I would take a lunch break at my desk with a sandwich or something. And he encouraged me, in order for you to make it in accounting, you're going to have to start going out to lunch with people, spending time with people, and chatting it up. And that was good of him to tell me that, because it wasn't something that I've just been focused all my life. So it hasn't been a an easy road. Sometimes people don't respect you as they should. But I command respect from people. So if you don't respect me, then that's on you.
good. How did your colleagues react when you began speaking out? How did they take that?
They were shocked at first, but then they started listening. Everybody knows me as a deep researcher. So I try to be as accurate as possible. My father told me a long time ago, your word is all you got. And if you're not accurate, or if you're lying, I mean, you make mistakes when you talk. I made a mistake in a speech one time. I said there were 139 countries or something like that. And somebody just had an uproar about it. It was like it was a mistake.
Right.
So, but if you're saying things and they're not true, then you're going to lose all credibility. And I'm careful about trying to make sure that whatever it is I say is accurate. So when people hear from me, then they know that she's done the research, and I leave it up to them to go prove me wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I will admit, hey, I was wrong.
So you're not afraid to say that you were wrong. You
No,
never
not at all.
you didn't find that difficult or hard to do. And that
I am one that will take accountability.
and your colleagues, how when you provided the data and you did your research, How did when and you presented the facts? How
Hmm.
did they take it?
Uh, well, I mean, the facts are the facts. They have the decision to make whether to. This is a quote, and this is a deep quote, and I'll never forget it. I got it from one of my attorneys. When an honestly mistaken man or woman stumbles across the truth, therefore he is no longer mistaken or no longer honest.
Mm, I need to sit with that for a second. That's good. That is good.
So that's those are the choices that they have. They're no longer mistaken or they're no longer honest. If I'm the one that's mistaken, I'm going to admit it.
I love that. I love that. And you live by that. I want to stay here for one more second. What was the moment that shifted your loyalty from the IRS? Because I imagine it's somewhat like the military. I served in the military. You have to take an oath, right? Some form of, besides the contract, the paperwork. But there's a commitment. There's a commitment that you stand for. Um, God, country, and taxes, and whoever. What was that moment that shifted your loyalty from the IRS to the truth you now defend today?
It wasn't really just one. It over time. First of all, after I left the IRS, is when the revelation came. People think that I left the IRS because of the revelation. I didn't leave because of the revelation. I left for family reasons. I had young kids, and the IRS was getting more of my time. And as a Christian mother, I knew that that was wrong. So I left and I came home to do CPA work and be June Cleaver. That didn't work out so well. So I started a CPA firm, and people started to come and tell me, "Hey, I think that the income tax is being misrepresented and misapplied, and we're not the ones supposed to be paying it. It's supposed to be tariffs and duties and imposts and things." And so I didn't really do anything about it until a little later. A lot of information started coming at me. One of the main things was a USA Today ad that was put out by a group called We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education. And it said, "Dear We the People, the income tax is a fraud." And I was like, whoa. So someone had told me about it, actually. I'd started working with churches because when I was an IRS agent, they had me auditing ministers. That's a whole nother story. But some of those ministers, I went out after I left and said, "Hey, ministers and pastors, the IRS is after you. Let me sit down with you and show you how to audit proof yourself and how to proof yourself from the IRS." So one of those pastors said, "Hey, I've got this permission, the commissioner, I'm sorry, not commissioner, a member that has got this information about the taxes." So I talked to this lady, and she water hosed me down with a lot of information, and I didn't really look it up. But 2 weeks later, she called me back and she said, "Hey, the USA Today has this ad in it." So I saw the ad. It said, "Dear We the People, the income tax is a fraud." And then there were two things in that ad that struck me. There was a $50,000 reward by a guy named William Conklin for anybody that could prove that Americans that live in the 50 states have to pay an income tax or file an income tax return. The second thing was there was a former IRS agent had written a book about the fact that he had done all this research and found that we are not liable. So I ordered a couple of the books and I went after that $50,000. And 3 months later, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is something." The straw that actually broke the camel's back was Ed Griffin's book. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it talks about how the founders of the Federal Reserve, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all those, came down to Jekyll Island, Georgia, and had a meeting to create the Federal Reserve, and that the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's no
Mm,
more federal than Federal Express, but they collect over $80,000, $80,000 in interest per person every day. If you go to Debt Clock, put in Debt Clock, and you'll see how fast it's moving. We're like I think at $38 trillion in debt. Well,
mhm,
we abdicated our responsibility as a Congress to print the money, and we gave it over to a private, non-auditable banking cartel. They're not even federal, and so they're printing the money, but they're charging interest back, and we're getting charged for that. So what came to this black woman's mind was, I'm sitting here working sometimes 16 hours a day, doing all these audit reports for my CPA firm, trying to have Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy keep me awake because I was playing videos. I'm a Trekkie. I'm a true Trekkie,
I
right?
love it.
And so I got these videos going while I'm trying to stay awake to finish these reports. And these children's children of the Federal Reserve owners will never have to work a day in their life because of what was done back in 1913 and right in that area, 1911, 1930. And I got that black woman's head snap. I was like, I'm not doing this. I want my family to have the privileges that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds have. I want to be able to take nice vacations instead of going to grandma's every year. But that's not going to happen if they're continuing to dig in my pocket and take thousands of dollars. And for those that are, that work for a company that as an employee, thousands of dollars coming out. There's so many things that we can do with that money, but it's being taken. And for what? It's not for the roads. They got people thinking that, oh, we need good roads. No, the gas tax pays for that. Oh, we need to pay the firemen and the policemen. No, your real estate taxes pay for that. There's a report, and it's called the Grace Commission Report. Ronald Reagan in 1984 commissioned Peter Grace and others to go out and figure out how to save, money, and they came back with a report. It's about 2,800 pages, but and early on it says not one nickel of in the income tax is spent on running the country. Not one nickel. So Beardsley Rummel, which was a Federal Reserve chairman back in the 30s, wrote a treatise called Taxes for Revenue Are Obsolete. And he explains what taxes are for. They're for redistribution of wealth. So the poor get poorer, the rich get richer, and the middle class continues to struggle to stay middle.
Did I understand you correctly? Did I understand that you just said our income taxes do not go to fixing roads?
No, that's the gas tax.
What what in the world? Okay, so I gotta get my mind right. What I imagine at some point, because you've been labeled as a whistleblower. At
Yes.
what point did you start putting this information out? I congratulate you for going out and being proactive and saying, "Hey, churches, you guys are being targeted. Let me help you solidify this framework. Let me help you, like you said, bulletproof your tax proof your agency or nonprofit." What when did that shift? When did you start putting this information out and start helping more businesses, more churches, more entrepreneurs to save their hard-earned money? When did that shift?
Well, almost immediately. That ad, remember I said that there was a book that a former IRS agent, he was actually a criminal investigation division agent, one that carried a gun and a badge. He wrote a book, and what he had done is he had, for 2.5 years on his own time, started researching because he was driving and he heard a lady on the radio say, the income tax is a fraud. And, he wanted to go after these people and ended up spending time with them, doing interviews with them, flying to them on weekends. And he wrote a report and said, hey, you know what? It looks like we're not the ones that are liable for an income tax. He went to his superiors at the IRS, and he's in San Jose, California. His name is Joe Bannister. And they said they're not going to answer his questions in that report. The report ended up turning into the book. They said, we're not going to answer your questions. And a matter of fact, we're going to give you a week to take off and figure out what you want to do. Do you want to resign? So he resigned. Now, when I heard about the book, it hadn't been out that long, but I ordered 2 books. And in my order, I put information that I'm a former IRS agent, and I've been doing the research. Joe Bannister called me from California one night about 11 o'clock, and he said when he got that check in the mail for his books, he fell out of his chair. So we talked for about an hour, and
He
he
was
was
afraid.
already, pardon?
He was afraid.
No, he finally found somebody else that came out to speak about it. So his
Mm.
book had come out. He was exposed. He was the one out there. He was the darling of the tax movement saying, hey, this income tax is a fraud. It's being misrepresented and misapplied to the American people. So his book came out. Somebody published the book, and I bought the book. And I said, hey, I'm doing the same research. So he called me, and then he let me know that there was a group of people that are doing it, businessmen that did not want to withhold money from their workers taxes anymore. So we all got together. They flew me out to California, and then we got with the group called We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education, which was out of New York, and they were winning cases in the state. And they were the ones that put the ad in the paper, and they said, we're going to raise the money for 12 more ads. And they got another ad in there. What do these businessmen have in common? They all stopped taking money out of their workers' paychecks, and then they had all the law in there. And we were in the next one. What do these 3 people have in common? There was another former IRS agent that joined us. So Joe was from the criminal investigation division. I was from a revenue agent. And then John Turner was a revenue officer. So you had people from three different divisions of the IRS in the USA Today, and it said, what do these three people have in common? They're all former IRS employees who say that the income tax is being misapplied. The lawyers for the USA Today, even though they had paid for 12 ads, shut it down. Said that we were encouraging people to do something that's illegal, and we weren't doing anything but putting the law in there, all the codes and regulations. So I started speaking, and I'm very, very passionate, and I have my facts together, and I started getting speaking engagements all over the place and informing people. And then after that, there's a guy named Aaron Russo. He made Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and the Rose with Bette Midler. So he was a Hollywood director. He got upset with the IRS and decided to do a documentary called America, Freedom to Fascism. That documentary is still out there on YouTube. And when that documentary came out, there were lines around the corner. The mainstream movie theaters were told to shut it down, and then it went to the smaller ones, and then it finally went to DVD. But that's when the government decided, hey, we got to shut these people up. We don't want all these people. They're not hillbillies from the hill or crazy people frothing at the mouth. These people got letters behind their name, and they're telling people, hey, check this out. Now, we made a pact not to tell anybody what to do. We didn't tell anybody to file or not to file, or to pay or not to pay. We just told people to do their own research. And I would add in my speeches, and decide whether you want to be a slave or get off the plantation. Because think about this. This is another quote, and it's a picture that I have in my office. If stealing 100% of the product of someone's labor is slavery, at what percentage is it not slavery?
Great question. That I think at 1% is stealing is still stealing.
Right. And so as a Black woman, and knowing that the heritage that I have, I didn't want to be a slave anymore. So I stopped filing, and then they went after me. So what they did was they raided my home in 2004. They came early in the morning. They stayed all day, and they collected about 32 boxes. They had it at gunpoint. So they
Oh my
knocked on the
gosh.
door. I was in my basement doing some work because my office was in my basement. And I ran upstairs. All I had on was a t-shirt, Marcus.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm running up the stairs because my mother knocks on the door that loud, and just knocks. They knock just like my mother, and I ran up like, "What is she doing here this early?" And when I got to the door, there were red lasers on my head.
Oh my gosh.
So I had a decision to make. Am I going to open up the door and let these people in, or am I going to, have my children come down the stairs and see their mom in a pool of blood? So I opened the door. The first two people that entered my house were county police officers. And people that know about this whole situation know about jurisdiction. Who has jurisdiction? So the people that had jurisdiction let the people who didn't have jurisdiction in. I have 15 to 20 agents swarm in my house. I had one in the backyard with a metal detector, and he was going around in circles in my backyard. I guess they thought maybe I buried something down there. And I don't know, most of the agents that were in the house looking like, what are we doing here? It's like these people are just normal people. I don't know what they were told in meetings. I have no idea what they were told in meetings, but that's what happened. They went away, and this was in '04. In '07, after doing all this research and interviewing people and stuff, they decided that they couldn't find a felony on me. So they charged me with misdemeanor willful failure to file. Misdemeanor willful failure to
What?
file. Yes. Failing to file a tax return is not a felony, it's a misdemeanor. But the jury was so afraid that if they didn't go along with the government, then they would be audited, that I got a conviction, and the judge gave me a 4-year sentence on that misdemeanor.
What in the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah, this is where we are right now. So whistleblower is saying, hey, wait a minute. Um, we're not supposed to be having this money taken from us. We have to live life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or life, liberty. Okay, let me give you a very, very simple example, Marcus.
Mhm.
If I come, we make an agreement. I'm going to come and cut your grass. In exchange for that, you're going to give me $100. Okay. So I'm cutting your front lawn, and your back lawn. I'm using my arms, my legs, and my brain. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is my life force. I don't get that time back. I don't get that energy back. And it's exchanging it for $100 so I can go get food for my family. Okay. The second scenario, Walmart. Let's think the smallest Walmart in the country made $100,000 yesterday. but they have to pay the workers, they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the utilities and all that. And after all the, and they have to pay for the goods that are in there. And after all of that, they spent $60,000. Their profit is $40,000. They pay tax on the $40,000. They don't pay tax on the $100,000. So they're taking us for granted and taxing us on 100% of what we earn, and we lose so much in that. I don't know. I think I saw that you have children. Your children deserve to have a savings account with $100,000 in it, or as one of the wealthy people said, a briefcase full of gold. But we can't do that if the income tax is still there. And so when all of this started happening, I started labeling the IRS different. They are the insidious representatives of Satan. That is my name for the IRS from here on out, because they're
Wow.
taking away from the middle class and even anybody and doing. I mean, why would they be funding the national endowments for the arts to draw, obscene pictures? We're paying for that with the income tax and so many other things. But yeah, so that's how this happened. So I spent 3 years in federal prison, and in a prison camp. I did have to go to solitary confinement for a whole 5 months. I was in the hole for 5 months because some people came and they were protesting, saying I shouldn't be there, but I also got sick in there. And Congressman Ron Paul, he was a congressman then. Somebody found out I got sick, and they contacted Ron Paul. They contacted my local congressman. From what I understand, the quote unquote Department of Justice's medical phone was, for 3 days they couldn't get any calls through, and so they took me away and they took me to an FCI, which is the real federal prison, like where people kill people. And they put me in the hole for 5 months. I was literally in solitary confinement for 5 months. Come out once a week to take a shower, and then maybe every other morning they would put me in a cage outside. And I'm a homeschooling mother, just trying to keep what I earn, Marcus.
Right, right, right. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is a nightmare. That is horrible. I'm so sorry. I can't apologize enough. And that is traumatic. That is scary. How do you feel, and this is probably an obvious question, do you feel that was retaliatory for
Of
on
course, of
and
course.
what got you through that? In a solitary confinement, that breaks people. Did you ever falter, fail? What kept you? How did you manage to get through 5 months of solitary confinement?
I'm a loner, and I needed that time. I was so done with those ladies at that point. It's like, Lord help me. So he did. He got me out of there, got me in solitary. After about 45 days, I got a radio. And so I was able to tune in to the Christian stations and listen to my favorite folks. And I stole a towel because you weren't supposed to have them. I stole the towels so I could roll it up and pray on my knees. It was good. It was me and the Lord in there, and that's how I got through. It's always him, And my dad, when I went in, he told me to treat it like a university. He talked about Nelson Mandela and how, he came out and said that, they asked him how he did it for 27 years. He said it was a university. So I did that, and, just continue to do what my grandfather said. When you're down, just keep getting up.
Wow. Wow. Was there any physical abuse to you? Did they ever harm you?
No, no. I was like, when I was at the camp, I was like the mother hen. I was the oldest one in there. Most of those girls that were in there were drug runners, or, their mothers, they were crack babies and had gotten in trouble. So I was the one that they came to when they got in trouble. And then in solitary, I was literally in solitary. I could not have any interaction with the other ladies because, remember, I'm the misdemeanor. They could not put me anywhere around those ladies that were felons. And the guards came to check on me. I would, walk real fast, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in the cell. And they sent this one guy that, kind of would check on me. He said, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna become Shamu the whale in here. I got to do some exercise." So he was laughing and he went on. And then there were a couple of guards that came by and said, "Hey, I'm lifting you up. I'm praying for you. I know who you are and I know what you did." So but again, it wasn't anything that I wanted. I tried to get as much vitamin D as I could. So when it was sunny, I would go out and put my face up to the sun. And yeah, it was very interesting. I'm a very resourceful person, but that time spent with the Lord, I would never give that up.
Wow. What did you learn about courage? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about faith during your imprisonment? And when did you get out? How did you get out? Um, you appealed. I imagine you appealed.
No, actually, I
Every
did, but they gave it to the same judge, and she sat on it till the sentence was over. See, I got a 4-year sentence, and they have to give you 6 months good time and 6 months halfway house if you're that model prisoner. So I got out 3 years to the day that they put me in there. They did not want to let me out of there. So I went in on Valentine's Day of 2008, and then I got out 2011, February the 14th, 15th, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, and if it wasn't for the fact that they had to give me the good time and the halfway house, I would have literally spent 4 years in there because they didn't want to let me out.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is hard, right? That is hard. And sister, I commend you. I applaud you. I have to ask the why. You got out after serving that time, solitary confinement, the whole thing. You got out, and now today, um, help us explain what you do today and why. Because I think most people would give up. Most women would have given up. They would stop. They would stop. They would go on a private island, disappear, and not do the great work that you're doing. What keeps you going? Why are you still helping people?
One of the founding fathers, Thomas Paine, said, "If there be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace." If I don't do something about what's going on right now, my children and my grandchildren are going to be, paying 50%. Well, we already pay 50%, 100%, like in the communist countries. People need to be aware. People need to be able to keep what they earn. So, as opposed to me teaching people how to try to cut the head off the beast, which is what I did, 95% of the people are not going to even buck up to them like that. People are afraid of the insidious representatives of Satan. They are afraid. So what I do is I help people starve the beast. You go ahead and file, but then you write off everything but the kitchen sink. The tax code is written for businesses. We learned that, if you didn't already know, in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump. And she said, Donald Trump didn't pay his taxes. And everybody sucked all the air out of the room. I didn't see it because I don't have TV. I don't watch TV. I don't have time for that. That's the electronic income reducer and the electronic intellect reducer. At any rate, I looked it up online, and she said that, and he said, I'm a smart man. Well, he is, because the tax code is written for businesses. And when you have a business, you can write off everything. When you have a job, they take the money off the top. When you have the business, you make the money, then you have your expenses, whatever they are, and then you pay tax. So would you rather pay, upfront, or would you rather decide what you have to pay? So that's what I teach people. Most of my clients have full-time jobs, but instead of coming home and turning on the electronic income reducer, they come home and they decompress for a while with their family, and then they start on their home-based business. Some of them, the husband and wife, work together and they tag team on the weekends. They're not sitting there all day in front of the television watching football, because until Tom Brady or whoever's playing starts stroking me a check, my team is the Jackson team.
Absolutely. That's fair, right? And
It's
it
fair.
is. There's so many people waste their time on team. I'm with you. I don't follow sports at all. I do watch TV, but because I have such a stressful day and all the different things and all the different podcasts and all the stuff I'm doing. But I do agree with you. Wait, I don't own the team. I don't understand going to a bar and eating these overpriced wings and fighting and arguing over players that don't know my name. I will watch sports like Jay-Z and Beyonce because I have an investment in this team, right? He doesn't attend those sporting events and sit in the bleachers because he enjoy it. Well, maybe he does. But more importantly, him and Beyonce own a team. So of course they're going to show up for their team that they own and they have investment in.
I
And
didn't know that they owned a team.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, I think they bought a baseball team, I believe it. If I
Okay.
and people watching this, don't be mad at me. I don't follow sports. I
Right, right,
caveat it with that, but it's a waste of my time. I don't I
right.
don't I don't care about the jerseys. I don't care about any of that because it doesn't put anything in my pocket. So, but you said something interesting. You were not shocked that Donald Trump pays zero taxes. So you, as a professional in this space, the tax code, you feel it gives businesses the opportunity to literally pay zero taxes. You've seen that, you've done that for clients.
It's a long list of people that you can hear. And 85 to 90% of businesses don't pay taxes because they write off everything but the kitchen sink. When I was an IRS agent, I'm not going to name the name on here, but there was a very, very well known person, and I was not auditing them. I had to go through special tax returns in a special program. And this person that owns a whole lot got the earned income credit.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, the when you section Internal Revenue Code section 162 says all ordinary and necessary business expenses are tax deductible. So what is ordinary and necessary? I'll give you an example. Back in, I think it was 94, there was a woman named Cindy Hess. And Cindy Hess, on her tax return, wrote off a breast enlargement. And the IRS got that tax return, and they denied her the deduction for her breast enlargement and laughed till they just fell out. So Cindy said that she deserved it, and she went and got a lawyer, and she went to tax court. And the tax court agreed with Cindy and gave her back her breast enlargement deduction. Why? Because Cindy Hess, better known as Chesty Love, was a pole dancer. And that was an ordinary expense for her, especially as she was getting older. So, what is ordinary and necessary? Common, helpful, appropriate expenses. If it was common for her, it was helpful and it was appropriate. I'm leaving
Ah,
out one of those. But so everything is deductible until it's not. When you, for example, you have a podcast, if you decide to do your podcast in Orlando and just so happen to take the children to Universal Studios, it's tax deductible, right? And so when you go to the store and it's across town and you need to get some things and you get some business paper, and some pencils, that trip is tax deductible. When you go out to eat, you talk to your friends and other people about your podcast, that meal is tax deductible, at least 50% now. They got it down to 50%. So there's so many things. Your cell phone, your internet, business use of your home. I have right now I'm in my basement. This is a whole studio apartment down here that I have rented out. The girl just moved out recently. In 5 years, this girl's been in my basement. And what am I doing? Writing it off. Depreciation is a paper deduction. So there's so much. And it's like, instead of trying to cut their heads off and say, I'm not paying taxes, well, now just say, okay, well, whatever money I make, I'll just write it off. Consulting, everything that I do is just tax deductible. I have property in Costa Rica. I take people down. I just got back from Costa Rica on October 26th. I had 8 people down there running them around trying to, show them the area so they can see if they want to have that as a plan B, tax deductible.
because that's business. That's in line with what you do. Just like the great example. Well, it's not an example because it actually happened where she is a dancer, and this is in line with augmentation, and augmenting her body is her moneymaker. That's how her business makes money, off of expenses. So that's in line in what she
Yes,
does.
yes,
Oh my gosh.
yes.
Oh my gosh. I want to ask, can you debunk a myth for me and the audience here?
Okay.
Are there quotas or unspoken expectations around audits and collections in the IRS? Did you guys have quotas to meet?
Not really. You got a stack of cases. Oh Jesus. You got a stack of cases, and you were expected to do those cases within a reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
And if you did not do that, then you didn't necessarily get a promotion.
What
Okay.
is each case specific? Like, okay, this is a business, this is a nonprofit. Like, are each case different and they get a lot of time, or each case is, no matter what the case is, you're expected to get them done within a certain amount of time, a reasonable amount of time?
Right. So you got, they had, IRS is broken down into divisions. So EPEO, which was, they did all of the nonprofit stuff.
Okay.
If you were working, if you had gone through training to do partnerships, then you would be doing all partnerships. The brand new agents come in and they do all small businesses. They don't audit employees because the company's taking the money out for them in the first place. So everybody has the stack of the same kind of cases, and some people just didn't get it done, and and they have a not a ratio, but they expect you, they like dollars for hours. So one time I closed a case of like $1.8 million in 4 hours, and everybody was like amazed, and it's like, how did you do that? And it's like, because when I walked in there, the people just handed me the tax returns that they didn't do. So I just left. I drove an hour there, I drove an hour back, and so I closed the case. I spent 4 hours on the case. It was $1.8 million, something like that. We did get rewards though if we close certain kinds of cases. When they had a politician or a preacher or somebody that was really high profile, if that case made the paper, that agent would get a reward.
Wow. But that wasn't advertised in advance. It's just, hey, you made the paper. Here's a bonus for you for doing such a great job or doing it in a timely manner. So
Right,
no, so there you go, guys. No quotas, but there is an expectation. There
right,
is a certain amount of cases that show up on your desk depending on what department that you work in.
right.
And so, wow, I had no idea that it was new IRS agents that handle small businesses. So these are just new IRS agents that are newly to the field, unlike you, who've been doing it for much longer than that.
Oh, when I
So,
came in, they you have to cut your teeth on the small businesses, because the mom and pop businesses are the ones that have the most errors, and mom and pop love their business. And one of the things your people need to know, they get audited. Loose lips sink ships. Get somebody to represent you, because everybody's blabbering about their business, and the IRS is taking notes, and you don't understand what they're doing. They're finding out these things to get you hemmed up. So a lot of times, mom and pop businesses fail, divorces and all that, because if they're just making it, and then you find out that you're charging them $90,000 in tax, they're going to go under. Well, and this is the inequity of it all. The larger companies that have CPAs and attorneys representing them, they just take stuff to court, to tax court, and get it either reduced or just about eliminated. For example, I had a case. It was a partnership or either a corporation. I closed that case. It was like 100 and something, almost $200,000. The protocol is when somebody appeals, then the appeal comes back to me so that I can rebut the appeal. So I closed the case and it was out of my mind. And then I was passing by my boss's secretary's desk one day and just happened to look, and I saw that case on there. I'm thinking, what is that doing back? So I picked it up, and it was like they had closed that case for like $25,000. It was almost $200,000. So I went to my manager and I was like, what is this? I didn't get a chance to do a rebuttal. What is this? And he
mm,
said, Sherry, leave it. I have a tax attorney that I work with very closely, and they're really good, because it's a father and three sons, and the father was he was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and he said when he came home he had to find something else to fight, so he chose the IRS. But he told me that sometimes they'll go into an appeal situation, and they'll say, okay, like one of the IRS lawyers says, okay, well, we can settle on this case. I just need you to get me a date with the big titty secretary on the second floor.
no way.
Yes way.
Oh my gosh.
Yes way.
Oh my gosh. Dr. Jackson, did you ever, I got to ask this now that we're in the realm, in the space, did you ever witness any racial or socioeconomic bias in audit targeting? You mentioned earlier the nonprofits, the churches, and all those separate departments, and you did experience that. Did you ever see any racial biases or any targeted actions against black and brown people, Asian people, um,
No,
anything
I
like
did
that?
not. I did not. The only thing was against the Christians. I did see that.
Okay.
Because some people, and that's why they picked me to head up what's loosely called a preacher project, because they knew that I was going to be even keel about it. If the person was guilty, they're guilty. If they're not, they're not. And yeah, there's something called a preacher project. There's a special program called the Market Segment Specialization Program, or MSSP for short, and they go after special targeted markets, especially cash businesses like laundromats and the dry cleaners and stuff like that. So they go after them and they figure out ways to audit them in a way that will make the money that they didn't report come up. Beauticians, for example, I go in to this woman's shop, I'm auditing her, and I'm chopping it up with her about hair and all that. And then I ask her, so I see your service prices. So how many shampoos do you do? And how many relaxers do you do and all that? And she's telling me, oh, I do a lot of relaxers and I do, but, and then what the IRS has done is they've calculated based on a 20-ounce bottle of shampoo, how many heads it would wash. And if I do that times her rate for washing, then I got a number. And if a jar of relaxer will do this many heads and she charges $75 for that. So, and I come up at the end and say, hey, so, it looks like you underreported your income by $75,000. What are they
Yeah.
going to do? They're scared. They're going to acquiesce to it simply because they know they took cash, probably took cash every Friday. And so they're going to, and that's wrong, because that number may not be right, but that's what happens.
And so you just match up the numbers that you got, and then bounce it across what they file for taxes, and say, "Hey, there's a mismatch here."
Yes. Yes.
Wow, 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 wow.
And
Do do
everybody always acquiesces to it.
does your firm represent people? You said that earlier. Hey, you need to get someone to represent you, so you guys don't start popping off in the mouth and saying the wrong thing. Does your firm represent your clients, its
I
clients?
I do not represent people before the IRS. Let me tell you why. First of all,
You're high
they
profile
don't allow, no, they don't allow me to represent people before that. They don't want to see me coming, but I do help people in the background. So the IRS believes that if you can pay an attorney or CPA or somebody to help you, then you can pay them. So what people do is they come to me, and I'm using an example right now. I'm being audited. This lady um, went to the doctor, found out she had MS. And that same day when she got home, she got a letter in the mail that she was being audited. I had already talked to her about coming to talk to her workers about how they can reduce taxes. So she called me. She said, I don't know what to do. I got these two big blows in one day. Got with her and her husband behind the scenes and got them to the point where the IRS had to give them money back. I had another audit where this lady was a travel agent and they were disallowing all these expenses where she traveled here and there. And I'm like, no, that's not right. I wrote it up, and there was some other stuff on her tax return that somebody else did that was wrong. But she went from $19,000 to $9,000, and then when she finished the office audit, the guy asked her, "Who helped you?" He knew somebody helped her, but I work behind the scenes because we want them to think that you're just some poor soul that they're just about to, you know, roll over, and then they get a surprise at the end. So yeah, I do help people, but I don't go in to the IRS and say I demand that you give my client, his money back or her money back.
because again, you're presenting the facts. Again, they know you. They know you.
Yeah,
They know you. They know
yeah,
you.
yeah,
And reputation matters.
yeah.
Um, I know this is kind of a stretch. It sounds like the way to avoid heavy taxation is expenses. As a business, operate that business or a nonprofit in a legal way and write off your expenses. But do you feel, are there other legal pathways for Americans to opt out of federal income tax as a whole or altogether?
There are a lot of unconventional ways out there. Some of them work, some of them don't. People are going to have to do their own research about that. No,
That's fair.
and take nonprofits out of that. It's the business.
The business.
If John has a business and Joe does not, and they both work at the same firm making $100,000, at the end of the year, Joe is going to have all this tax taken out, and he's going to owe tax on that 100,000. Whereas John, who has a business, let's say he has a $20,000 business loss, instead of him being taxed on the $100,000 W-2, now he's being taxed on just 80,000 of that, because ordinary income and ordinary loss wash each other out. So it reduces your W-2 when you have a business. So you not spending time watching television is saving money when you have a business, because you're doing the business. And if the business has a loss, it's going to lower the amount of taxes you pay on your W-2. If the business has a gain, then great, you're earning money to start putting aside for hard assets. It's a whole nother story. Silver, gold, and real estate.
Okay. The legend. Oh my gosh. Dr. Sherry Jackson on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, spilling the tea here today and helping us get to a better place financially and keep more money in our business. I love it. I love it. What's your response to those people who say just pay? We're in a very politically charged environment, and people would say pay your fair share. The wealthy need to pay their fair share. What would you say to those individuals saying that?
First of all, who is the wealthy? If you look at a lot of the legislation that goes through, the wealthy are people that make three or $400,000. That's not wealthy. That's not what, and the wealthy aren't paying because Musk and all of those are using the tax code. So who's really paying? It's the middle class, because the poor, a lot of them don't pay because they're below that threshold. What is your fair share? I think my grandfather and his brothers paid their fair share when uh some a doctor ran over one of the wives, and then the night riders came to put him out of town because they were scared it was going to scared that that our family was going to sue. All of them left. They didn't have cars back then. One of them had a car, but they didn't have U-Hauls. They all had to leave town. All had to leave everything that they had worked for. The doctor's family kept going, but my family had to start all over in three or four different cities. So what is a fair share? Has my grandfather and my great uncles and all those, they paid already. So that's what I say. I paid my fair share.
Absolutely.
What is fair share?
That's a great point. That's a big. It's fair share is like you like I think someone said today. Elon Musk just got his bonus $1 trillion check hopefully saving Tesla. And people and I've seen the calculations. I don't know why my algorithm is even geared this way, but my algorithm showed me, hey, if Elon Musk took his bonus check and used it to pay down the national debt, or how many people in America could they earn if they pay, like all the statistics and data, like, oh, he could make a huge dent in the deficit that we owe the United States. It's like, I think that's what people think about fair share. Here, help us with this large check that you're getting. Help the United States. You're here in America. You're here you're selling us Teslas and we're buying it. Use some of that money to pay us back.
Well, the system isn't set up like that. You can say that all day long, but the system is set up for the rich to get richer and the poor and the middle class to struggle. They're not going to do that. They're going. Some people, like the technocrats, are always going to have to be on top. How much is enough? Ask that. The Rockefellers. One of the Rockefellers was asked that, how much is enough, and he said his answer was just a little bit more. So if the system is set up to fail, the Democrats and Republicans are two wings on the same bird flying us into the abyss. I do not vote, Marcus, because changing the players without changing the game is an exercise in futility. They're at parties slapping each other on the back, and it's just a big kabuki dance. They're acting like they're fighting, and they keep us divided. All of us. I'm black, you're white. I'm a Republican. You a stupid Democrat. I'm a Jew, you're a Christian, all of that stuff like that. And they're sitting there laughing and going to the bank while we fight each other over all this foolishness. We all need to rise above all of that and say, what is going to be best for myself and my family? The United States right now has the world's reserve currency, but for how much longer? Do you have a plan B? Oprah has an island. What's that girl? Brunson, Virgin Air, and he has Necker Island. What's his name? Ted Turner has over 1,000 acres in Montana. What are you doing to make sure that your legacy, your family, is taken care of when the excrement hits the portable cooling device?
I want to. This is selfish of me. Are there any countries that the huge buzzword now is expatriating, leaving the United States, getting dual citizenship? From a tax perspective, any recommendations there? Where should I keep my money in the Cayman Islands? Can I keep my money from the IRS? Is that a good alternative than utilizing U.S. banks,
Well,
Swiss bank accounts?
they don't even work anymore because the IRS, I mean, the US government has bullied so many of the countries, especially the Caribbean countries, into giving up the information. And if you want to look up Panama files, a whole bunch of people got caught, with a whole bunch of shell companies in Panama. So it's not about that. It's about finding a place that you're going to have some peace, that you won't freeze to death, that you won't starve to death, and that you can do business and be on a level where you won't have everything taken from you. I have done research. I've looked at a lot of different countries and I chose Costa Rica. Why? I didn't want to go transatlantic. Everybody's talking about, well, you need to go back to one of the African countries. Well, my family's not going to be able to, when the excrement finally does hit the portable cooling device, my family's not going to be able to follow me transatlantic, for one thing. And a lot of corruption goes over there too. You can literally drive to Costa Rica through, down through Texas and Mexico. You can get there. That's one of the things. There's fruit growing on at least 60% of the trees. I mean, when I bought my house, I had a papaya tree that was about 5 feet. Now, a year and 6 months later, it's about 10, 15 feet tall. So there's food everywhere. I want to be able, put it like this: when the grocery stores close down in the United States, there's going to be pandemonium. We saw a little bit of that during the pandemic.
COVID, yeah.
The pandemic. When the grocery stores close down in Costa Rica, I'm just going in the backyard, give me something to eat.
Get some fruits, make some salad, get some tomatoes, get some cucumbers. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Make your own bread. You got your own wheat. Yeah.
Right. Not, and I'm not saying that Costa Rica is the only place. Costa Rica is a place that I've chosen. They have moderate pricing. You know, it is a little hot. Now, if you're not used to, Georgia or Florida in the summer, then you might not like it. But I've looked at other countries, and it's somebody said they were going to Germany, and they were told, no, they treat black people a little differently over there. You might want to stay in the Central America area. And that came from Catherine Austin Fitz.
Mm. Well, I imagine some time in solitary confinement, heat doesn't bother you as much. That vitamin D, like you said,
Yeah.
I appreciate the sun now today because there was a time when I did not have it. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
oh
yeah,
man.
definitely.
Any advice for pastors who fear of losing their 501(c) status? Any tips or things that you can share there?
Give it
Besides,
up.
obviously, book an appointment with you.
Give it up so you can preach freely. So
Come
I
on.
wrote a book called Church Wealth, Ministry Health: 5 Pillars of Ministry Growth and Financial Wellness. And it talks about, all these different areas where churches go wrong and get in trouble with the IRS, get in trouble legally. Talks about church growth, talks about creating generational wealth, not only for the pastor, but for the congregation. And so, yeah, the pastors, I help pastors now. I have churches and nonprofits that I work with to make sure that their books are in order, that they're working in integrity, and there's nothing going to go on in there that's going to cause them to stumble, especially the IRS stuff, and especially the legal stuff. This is the United States of America. We have 5% of the world's population, but we have 70% of the world's lawsuits. There are more lawyers in Jacksonville, Florida than the whole of Japan. So, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of being sued. So the churches need to pay attention and watch out. And that's what I teach. I actually have these packages. I have the Kingdom Advancement Package, where I come in and evaluate where a church is and help them get to where they need to be.
Love it. Love it. Love it. This woman is changing the absolute game. Again, I told y'all she is my hero today on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Wow. If you could wave a magic wand and you could stand before Congress and tell them, fix this thing, and I promise things will get better. What reforms, what policies, what would you implement if you could change the IRS today?
Well, you can't legislate morality, so it wouldn't be any of those kind of things.
Mm.
It's just get rid of the insidious representatives of Satan and let people have their money and let the free market roll.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And to that young girl, this has been a fantastic episode. To that young girl watching you right now, and she's feeling like she's way over her head. She doesn't know where to start. She has an idea in her head. She wants to get started, but she's afraid that Uncle Sam will take it off. What would you say to that young girl watching you right now if you could give her some words of encouragement and that not all hope is lost?
Don't get caught up in the system. You're able to start your own business, keep what you earn, protect what you earn, and grow what you earn. Baby, just turn off the TV, get on YouTube University, and start research business. But there's so many businesses out there that you can do. You have something valuable to offer to the marketplace. Figure out what that is, figure out what they want, and offer it to them, and you will do well.
Absolutely. And for those seeking you, who need your counsel, who needs your firm, what do they need to have, and how can they find you?
They can email me at connect@sherrypeeljackson.com and just let me know their situation, and I can evaluate whether I can help them or not.
Absolutely. Connect, connect, connect. This is incredible. I love this. I love this. Ms. Jackson, I want to say this to you publicly. Don't quit. I'm sorry you went through, and I hope you never get incarcerated again. But we need you. We need what you're doing, so continue to press on, and we appreciate you.
I
I
will do.
appreciate you.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. We are out of time. We have to let this incredible woman go. She has many more lives to change and many more companies to get started or save and help them save their legacy. But also, too, I want to point out the website for our audio listeners, sherrypeeljackson.com. Check her out. She's on LinkedIn. Connect with her. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, connect with me and I will get you to her. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's helping us change the game forever. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite host, and Dr. Cherry Peel Jackson signing off. Love you guys. Bye.